Hello, everybody. I am recording this on June the 30th, 2025. So we are truly at the middle of 2025. The first half of the year is now officially over, and the second half of the year is about to begin. So, with a lot of speculation on the infotech sector going on and the resilience of this sector in terms of its earnings, I wanted to turn to speaking about the major industries within that sector and talk about where they are at the mid-year. First off, of course, in my mind, is the semiconductor industry. So today I'll have two parts to my discussion. One is the big picture on the semiconductor industry, and part two will be the top semiconductor stocks by market capitalization. And we're going to break them into four and in some cases five style classes. So they'll go from the mega caps to the large caps, to the mid caps, to the small caps, to the micro caps. Lots of stuff to discuss in this business. Okay, so like I said, we'll get to the big picture on this industry. But before we do that, these are my views. I do have a PhD from MIT in economics, and they are not necessarily the views of Zacks Investment Research. Please keep that in mind. You can read the rest of this at your leisure. So, like I said, we will get into the big picture, and this is critical information. First off, semiconductors. I got this information from Hitachi and Science Facts, and it's the definitions of semiconductors and their advantages and disadvantages. This is great stuff for you as a retail investor, or even as an institutional investor, to understand better how the word semiconductor comes up. I circled this critically. Definition one, let's talk about it. What are semiconductors? It is a substance that conducts electricity. One that it conducts electricity is called a conductor, just a conductor. And a substance that does not conduct electricity is called insulator. Semiconductors are substances with properties somewhere in between these two things. So they are not conductors, they are not insulators, they are semiconductors. Semiconductors, they partly conduct electricity. So this is going to give you all of these advantages. They're small, they have long lifespans, low power, they're cost effective, they're fast, they're shockproof, and they're versatile, and they have high resolution. Over here's the disadvantages. We don't hear as much about these. Temperature sensitivity, radiation sensitivity, power handling limitations, miniaturization limitations, cost and high frequency limitations, and of course, manufacturing complexity. So let's keep all this in mind. Like I said, I think the most interesting thing here is to just know this word's basic meaning, and that is definition one. A semiconductor is partly conducting electricity. Okay, so there's four important facets to this business. The classification of semiconductors goes into intrinsic, extrinsic, N-type, and P-type. Take a look at this. I mean, a pure semiconductor made of silicon or germanium, or they can be doped. I think this means you create the impression of a pure semiconductor material by doping the material. And over here, you've got impurities playing a role in changing the type of semiconductor. I'm not enough of a scientist to give you the idea of P or N types. Just keep in mind that these are the classifications of semiconductors, and there's four of them. Energy bands. Again, conductivity will have valence bands, conduction bands, forgotten gaps, and band gap values. So all this is the energy bands of the conduction. Applications, of course, electronic devices, optoelectronic, those are your LEDs, renewable energy, and power electronics. Properties, of course, semiconductors, the first thing you'll talk about is conductivity, the energy band gap, like we talked about over here, temperature sensitivity, and photoconductivity, like we talked about down here. So again, this is just giving us a background on semiconductors themselves. All right, this is the manufacturing process. Up here, I've got a nice setup of describing what these acronyms are. So number one, an integrated device manufacturer in the semiconductor industry is a company that handles all stages of production from design to manufacturing to sales. Of course, look at the language. Of course, that makes sense. Integrated device manufacturer, IDM. So fabless companies, those are only design chips. Foundries, which only manufacture chips. IDMs control the entire process. And they produce integrated circuits designed by other companies if they're a foundry. Fabless again does the design, foundries manufacture design from an integrated circuit designed by a fabless company. And that across all of that, you have an integrated device manufacturer. Now, OSAT stands for Outsourced Semiconductor Assembly and Test. These are companies that specialize in back end. After they're done manufacturing it, you go ahead and test and assemble these things. So here you got another set of languages, electronic design and automation, EDA, again, integrated device manufacturers we've talked about, electronic manufacturing services, EMS, OEMs, just like a auto maker, original equipment manufacturers. All of this is going to be found in these descriptions. And it goes, like I said, from research and development to design and manufacturing, wafer fabrication, assembly, testing, and packaging, distribution, and integration. So this is the path, and we put that up here. Again, here are the business models. IDM, fabless, foundry, OSAT. Again, I put this material right up here. Those are your business models. Here's your production process. It runs down this way. Here's your description. Here are the key players. Now, for us as stock investors, look at these names so you understand the key players. That will be critical. Importance and challenges. All this is very nice to have in your hands. And of course, these slides are going to be needed for you to review these in detail, and you can get them from us if you contact us. Okay, so like I said, we're going to put these into style classes from mega caps, which is over 200 billion in market cap, to large caps between 10 and 200 billion. Mid caps, we're going to call that 2 to 10. Small caps, 250 to 200, and micro caps, less than 250. So here they are, the mega caps. I want to point out this Avogo is a 1.2 trillion. Of course, there's one big elephant in the room. We'll talk about it, which is NVIDIA. That's at 3.8 trillion market cap. So we're leaving that one off the list. That truly is a mega cap, and I will talk about it next. So mega caps, look at all the names. Large caps from here down. Texas Instruments, Qualcomm, ARM, Applied Materials, Lam, Intel, of course, Marvell, NXPI, Infineon, Microchip, Micropower, ST Micro. Those are the big names. Look at their market caps. I mean, again, ST Micro is at 27 billion. It's a big market cap. Amazing how little that is relative to 3.8 trillion for NVIDIA. Just insane. Mid caps, small caps, and micro caps. Again, these are tiny ones. Probably don't know these names, or these names, or even these names. Keep that in mind. You're going to have to come back to this to talk about putting them into the right areas. So, of course, the elephant in the room, NVIDIA. Remind yourself of this. NVIDIA has a 2.12 market beta. It's definitely leading, and it's 2 times the market. So there's speculation on a 2 beta stock is a lot of what's going on in the last year and a half. Market cap now 3.85 trillion. PE ratio at 37.2. Is there any estimate revision decline right now? No. There is a missed surprise here. And you have a big sell-off that's recovered now. It is hitting a record high again about this. You can see it's been tumultuous of late. And we'll see what that means. At the end of the day, the elephant in the room is this stock. And here is the story. No further comment needed. Top semiconductor stocks by market capitalization. I'm going to break them into 4 style classes. And here we go. So, number 1. These are our big ones. There's, of course, Avogo at the top. Looks a lot like NVIDIA. they built this thing up. You could have bought it at $40 in 2022. You can sell it now at 260. Maybe you should. Texas Instruments, a lot choppier and worse estimate revisions. Qualcomm, getting better. ARM, not a lot of data here. Down here, you've got some names you probably don't know. Nova Limited, which is Israeli, 7 billion. Lattice, which is set up in Oregon from 1983 on, kind of going down. Rambus up in San Jose, looking sharp. Allegro Microsystems in New Hampshire, chopping around. So again, lots of different stories here for us to discuss. Now we're getting into the small and micro caps. You certainly do not know these names. Here's Himax Technologies, Navitas, Applied Optoelectronics. You might know this one. It pops up in our Zacks systems a fair amount, ticker AAOI. Max Linear, KULR Technology, PTK Acquisition, Silvaco, and Magnachip. Look at this. Oftentimes, unlike NVIDIA, these are the bubblicious COVID stocks, and they all are sold off for the most part, other than AAOI. Keep this in mind. They haven't come back. The big names have, the small ones have not. All right, valuations. We're going to make that case here. Really interesting way to start here with a speculation going on. Avogo is not actually as rich as you might think, only 18 PE. MPWR is at 12.3. Texas Instruments very low at 10. And of course, some of these are even lower. This is the price to sales, by the way, not the price to forward earnings. So this is a little different. Over here, you've got lower valuations. Here, you've got even still lower valuations, and you've got the lowest valuations. So again, I just want to point out, people are wildly betting on the big names in the market. And the bigger the major name is, the higher the valuation is. Just keep that in mind. Gross profit margins. Astonishing production by Avogo with 66 gross margins. Texas Instruments 58. Intel, of course, look at this one here. Intel just really got hammered by all these groups, and they're down at very low 31% gross margin. Rambus, of course, we picked up that, and it does have an incredibly nice gross margin. And of course, you can look through all these names. Siva is a name you probably should look into. And here's Coda, which has got another nice story for you to look into. Net profit margins. Of course, surprisingly, Texas Instruments is doing really well. Lam is really nice. Qualcomm, AMAT, Avogo, all those names look pretty good. Ticker NVMI over here, and Cirrus, worth looking into. Here's Himax, HIMX. And over here again, once again, Coda. Take a look at Coda. Free cash flow. Look at Avogo's free cash flow. Astonishing performance. Really jumps out at you. Here again is Himax. Here we've got this ticker ALMU, which is worth looking into. And of Cirrus, of course, another name. Rambus again, we see again. These names are popping up. Okay, this is a great chart to look for stuff to play. Really nice to break out names that are doing well versus ones that aren't. And of course, you can see this big spikiness here for the small and micro caps back in the COVID period. That's totally over. This is a big stock area. Now, here is the cycle everybody worries about in this business. Return on invested capital goes up and down and up and down. You can see that here for the mega caps, here for the mid caps, here for the small caps. And then you get something like this name coming along really nicely for you, quick and getting better. That would be one to pick up and look into, see how they are doing and why they're doing better. But keep in mind, like the AMATs and LAMs, they do cycle up and down, and they're actually coming into a trough, which is why people are starting to buy them again. Our R&D at percent of sales, again, very cyclical for Marvel. Giving you an example of, again, you can see that cycle for all these big names, and it's much choppier and less pronounced in small and mid cap names, but very pronounced in the mega and large cap names. Keep that in mind. All right, CapEx to total assets. This isn't quite as interesting. You just want to know here, particularly in the microcaps, who's building up CapEx, because that's telling you they believe in their businesses. And Wolf is the name here. Quick is another name. Over here, we got TSEM and Amcor looking pretty good. And of course, believe it or not, Intel is stepping up the CapEx in their business, even though they're declining profits. Texas Instruments, another one. Total debt to capital. Again, you're going to see the Abogos of the world just step up the debt because they're acquiring so many people. Here's SMTC. They must have been a done big debt deal too. I mean, the bankers are in on these groups and they do supply capital to them. Reinvestment rate, really interesting to see who believes in their businesses. Again, there was a big reinvestment rate in the businesses back in the boom COVID period. Now they're all down. Keep that in mind. There is a cycle going on and we are bottoming right now, which is probably good for investors. Depreciation and amortization, I will leave alone. So that's it for me. I hope you enjoyed this semiconductor talk. The slides are critical for this information. It's very detailed and you can get a hold of them. Give us a call, 866-794-6065, or send us an email. That's the easiest way. strategycall@zackspro.com. All this information you can find at www.zackspro.com. So, like I said, here's the information you need. Give us a call, send us an email, and this will be your information for you to use. Thanks much.